Welcome to the Defense and Aerospace Report. I'm Vaga Muradian here at the Dubai International Air Chiefs Conference here in Dubai, UAE. Ninth gathering of this incredible event that brings regional Mideast air chiefs together with their counterparts from around the world. It happens the day before the Dubai Air Show. We're a media partner here, and our sponsor at the Dubai Air Show is Leonardo DRS, and it's our honor to be talking to the Chief of the French Air Force, Philippe Lavigne, again. Sir, thanks very much for the time. It was terrific seeing you in Paris and great seeing you here.
Yeah, thank you very much. Good afternoon. It's a real pleasure to be here in order to, of course, to exchange a lot with my dear fellow counterparts.
And, you know, just one important thing, just to talk about this great conference. I mean, we had Australian representation across the Middle East. The Chief of the United States Air Force was here. David Goldfein, Mike Wigston, the Chief of the Royal Air Force, was here as well. Why are gatherings like this so important?
It's very important for us in order to share experience and to share the view. For example, the goal of this meeting was the imaging the sixth generation future combat air system. So to share different view, and it's very important for us in order to progress together. But of course, each Air Force.
I want to ask you about SCAF. Obviously, that's the French, German, Spanish program. Obviously, the Brits, the Italians, and the Swedes have their Tempest effort that's going to result in their airplane. But first, I want to talk about a story that you started with, that in your office, your staff set up a control stick, a throttle quadrant, put it on a computer, and you were real-time linked and could actually participate in exercises. Talk to, you know, as opposed to some people who think, oh, there goes a chief of staff who still wants to be in every fighter pilot is still a fighter pilot. But why? What's the bigger message of that, and what were you trying to demonstrate by having that capability in your office?
Well, I think that's the main thing is that synthetic training is coming more and more real. And we need that. We need that for who? We need that for the young people, the young pilots. We need also for the young controllers, GCI, for example. We need it for the technicians. That means that if you've got a goggle and you see virtual, you can make skills. And we have to do skills when we are young, and skill reaction to threat, for example, or how to repair something, or to make the control. So it's very important for that. And of course, you want to attract the youngs, and the youngs are all at a very young age. They play a lot with this type of things. So I think they are very attracted by this type of training. And secondly, we have we've got a plan for use the synthetic training, and we call it LVC, live, virtual, and constructive. We've got a plan till 2024 in France. That means that we will link aircraft, simulators, so guys in the simulators, and constructive. That means somebody who is going to make the environment the most realistic as possible, and so you will upgrade the level of the training. So it's why synthetic training is so important for us.
And Lieutenant General Al Meinzinger, the Chief of the Royal Canadian Air Force, also talked about how augmented reality was saving money because maintainers, for example, can practice painting instead of making an error. So there's a lot of direct payoff for that.
Yes, of course. And it's the same for the technician, as you say, or for the GCI. But I think the main aim the main goal also for this synthetic training is to upgrade the level of our guys, of our airmen or airwomen, because the environment will be more and more complex. So we had to be to get good skills in order to react very fast, and it was General Dave Goldfein who talked about the OODA loop.
Right.
We have to be inside the OODA enemy loop,
right?
So to act more quicker. So you can think about synthetic training for flying, for maintenance, but you also could do synthetic training for electronic warfare or for C2, for example, and that's very important.
That's right. Chuck Boyd's OODA loop, which is to focus more on some real world operational challenges, and then take you to where we are on the SCAF program. Iran's or its proxies' coordinated attack in Saudi Arabia was something that was seen as sort of a watershed. There was a swarming component to it. There was a conventional cruise missile component to it. It was an exceptionally precise strike. General Khalid, the former chief of the UAE Air Force, added that it had a height dimension to it that was very precise in where to hit oil tanks, for example, to not totally, it was a very, very sophisticated attack. What does an attack like that tell you as an air chief about how threats are changing and how the precision that you've enjoyed and the U.S. Air Force has enjoyed can now be used by adversaries in a very, very different way, and in a way that's even very difficult to detect, because this strike package, for lack of a better word, transited deep into Saudi territory without detection?
You're right. It puts a lot of light on different points. The first point is that we, for example, when we are talking about counter UAS, we have to take, of course, we are taking into account, but we have to, and the drones are smaller, and they are difficult to detect. So we have to progress a lot on that. And in France, for example, we are working a lot on that, but I know that US is working also a lot on that. So we have to take into account that. What does it mean for me is that we have, if we want to defend, we must have all the layers, and if we have a lack or hole in the layer, we will fail. So we will have to work on that part of counter UAS, but we have also, for example, in France, when we've got the G7, when we want to protect the G7, we put a sort of bubble with different layers, drones, but also to take into account small aircraft or cruise missiles. That means that we have so you need to have this different system, but most important is to have also the command and control that permit to organize the defense, to react, and that's a big issue, of course.
Let me ask you. You just sparked a question. The NATO Industry Forum this year was focused on enhanced decision making, which was hosted by General André Lanata, your predecessor as the chief of the French Air Force, who's now the Supreme Allied Commander Transformation, and Camille Grand, who is the Assistant Secretary General for Defense and Investment. Full disclosure, I was a moderator at that conference. But how do you envision the artificial reality, the quantum space, in assisted decision making? Because there's the challenge of information overload, there's a challenge of information management, there's an analysis. How do you see the role of technology and how leaders have to change how they potentially have to make decisions or not? What's your view on how to think about this new dynamic space as it's developing in real time?
Well, I think that the first point is to deal with the data. At the moment, we are too huge in data, and there are too many data. So we have to select to make the data more exploitable. That means that it could be used by the human. And first, then second, we have to say which data we want to see. So it's to manage the data, and then I think there are a lot of projects on machine team. That means that the way we are going to work with the machine, and we have to progress and to understand how the machine is going to produce, and so we have to tell the machine what we want her to or it to produce and to present. And we've got a lot of work on cognitive also things to know when or how it has to be presented to the man. So a lot of work are already in progress.
Let me take you to the question of SCAF, something which you spend a little bit of time on, focused as the Chief of the Air Force. What's the latest to report there? You know, there appears to be a little bit of German reluctance in terms of the demonstrator program, which is seen as being key for this effort. In fact, a little bit of German reluctance also on the Eurodrone medium altitude, long endurance system as well in terms of developing a demonstrator. Bring us up to speed on where we are on the SCAF, or rather you are on the SCAF program with your partners as you're working both to continue to refine and define what you want the airplane to be, but also work out the industrial collaborative elements of this, which are seen as so important. One of the advantages of a national program is you can move faster. One of the advantages, this advantage of a collaborative program is you have more people, but maybe it moves a little bit more slowly. Bring us up to speed where we are.
Well, you know, it's a very huge project. So we can all understand that it's more complex than a small one. First of all, second of all, we at political level there is a will, and at military level we daily exchange with my German homologue air chief and the Spanish air chief. I'm going the 25th of November. I will be in Berlin in order to develop the operational means, in order to continue to be the leader of what we want, because the need are what they are now, but we know that there will be maybe some change, and so we have to be very cautious about that. Secondly, as I said this morning, 2040 the future combat air system, but we've got a roadmap from now to 2040 for the French combat aviation, and the same in Germany and the same in Spain. So what we say that we are going to convert to make this three roadmap more a convergence between these three roadmap, in order to develop the same brick, the same steps. For example, the Rafale F4 will have in 2025 more connectivity, more survivability. So we will speak with the German and Spanish on Typhoon, and in terms, for example, of connectivity. For example, but SCAF is not only the next generation fighters; it's other things like the MRTT. We've got MRTT, and we will have. We will transform our MRTT as a first step also for the future combat air system, while given it more connectivity, SATCOM, for example.
It's a smart tanker. The MRTT is the multi-role refueling tanker, but you want to put a smart capability on it.
That's it. And we've got already the combat project team, which is already in France. We've got the French from my staff. We've got German officers who are already working together, and the Spanish are coming in January. So it's going on, and of course, if we are talking about industry, I will let the procurement agency talking about that. But we have already signed the joint command study, and the aim is to sign at the very beginning of 2020 the contract for the demonstrator, and we all want a demonstrator for 2026. So it's going on.
Yes, I wasn't trying to get you to speak for DGA, but also the roadmap is really fascinating. If you look at what you did with F3R version of the Rafale, how that goes into F4, how it goes into F5, and then F6, and F5 being a very key bridge to demonstrate those technologies. Let me ask you on unmanned. You are going to gain a capability at the end of the year. Yeah. Talk to us about what armed Reaper will mean for the French Air Force.
Reaper, we are going to have our first capability at the end of the year with a GBU 12 on this Reaper. For us is the continuation of the process, and it's not a new thing. We as a fighters, we have already we had already bombs under our aircraft, so it will be the same rules, the same procedures. I want to remind you that our teams are not in Cognac, but they are in Niger. They are inside the AOR. They are dealing with the fighters, with the tankers, with the intel, etc., etc. So they are in the more than in the loop. They are in the team. So it's a step. It's a step who will give to the Joint Chief of Staff more capability.
And let me ask you about retention, where we started in the beginning of the program. What are some changes that you feel, as the Chief of the French Air Force, you need to make in order to retain pilots in uniform? That's a very big challenge. There's a generational shift in commercial airplanes. So there's an aging out, but there's also an insatiable demand for more capability, and you produce some of the best pilots on the planet, which is why they're pursued. Dutch Air Chief said the same thing. Again, Canada, United States, every major air force, Australia, everybody is facing this challenge. What are some of the changes you have to make? The Royal Air Force allowed folks to serve longer in billets, has also created, or I should say beefed up programs where once guys retire, they become a mentor to a squadron or a unit somewhere. And then you've also announced a youth program. Talk to us about all of the, because the Brits have the Air Cadets, for example, since the founding of the service. What are the different mechanisms you're using? Because at the end of the day, the most important single resource you have is people, without which the force doesn't operate.
Yeah, you're right. Retention is the key point for me, and of course we have to continue to recruit, because we recruit. We've got a good recruitment, and we have almost double in 5 years the recruitment. But if we want to continue, we have to have a certain of mass of number of people who wants to come, and we when I saw the Royal Air Force cadets, say, wow, it's a very good idea, because I know that young people wants to know what's going on in the air, and we are going to offer them the opportunity to see, to practice, to fly, and to see us also the different specialties we've got. We've got 50 specialties in our aircraft, and of course we thought that a certain number of young wants to continue the life with the beginning of their adult life with us. So it's an opportunity for us. But I have also to retain. And how can I retain? I retain if the pilots are flying, and young doesn't want to stay too much long in the first to learn, and they want to learn with what they've got at home. So what we need is a modernization of our training process, and we had talked about synthetic training, but we've got the PC-21. We are going to make it more coherent in order to modernize it, to be attractive, but also to reduce the time. At the end, it will be reduced for 10 months on 46 months. So it's good, because after that they will go quicker in the operational flight, and so I will have more people in that. And what we've got also, it's not only flying. Of course, we have to fly, so we have to increase the disponibility of our aircraft. So it's another field in which we are working on that. We have also to keep to take into account the quality of their environment, the family, and our Minister, Madame Parly, has pushed a lot on that. There is a big plan on family, and in order to give them the best environment of that. And we are also doing a new human resources sourcing policy that deal more on competency than the flow. So, and in order to give them visibility, but also to know what they want to do, what they have as a competency, and try to have a win-win partnership with individual the conduct of their own career.
Let me ask you one just last question, because I thought of it in terms of from a connectivity standpoint. There's a concern within the Atlantic Alliance, but also among some of America's allies, that Washington is looking at China as a pacing threat, and as a consequence may spurt ahead to the point where it causes problems with allies to be able to interoperate and to be able to communicate. That's, I think, a bit of a challenge maybe for air forces that are not as sophisticated as the French Air Force and some others. But do you see a challenge there within the alliance? Is enough being done to make sure that F-35s can communicate seamlessly with your fleet and your force? And as a whole new generation of capabilities evolves very rapidly, that the alliance as a whole is going to be able to be on the same level altogether as one fist, as General Goldfein said.
Yeah, General Goldfein is totally right, and it's our permanent combat is that we have to be more interoperable. What does it mean? If you want to be if we want to be more reactive than we are, we have to be more interoperable. But what does it mean? Is that we have to be native interoperable. That means that at the very beginning, the standards, the way we are going to transmit the information type has to be think before creating the system. And we have a huge opportunity with the sixth generation system, is to build this, to build the pavements of a native interoperability, to build it with, of course, United States, to build it with European, and to build it with Commonwealth, to build it with Allied, and then after, if you want to put, it's like a phone. If you want to put an application because you want, for example, France to make nuclear deterrence, you will have a special application to do that, and of course, like US. Well, but the pavement, the foundations are native interoperable, and we have to work on that.
And the last question before you go, you're working with the RAF, obviously is working with Italy and Sweden. How's that going in terms of making sure that the Brits, the Italians, and the Swedes know about your program to make sure that you're building that foundational interoperability between the two most important European fighter programs?
Well, I was with Mike Winston, the Royal Air Force Air Chief of Staff, we were together 2 days ago, and we were talking about operational and etc. So we are fully interoperable. So because the base, the pavement is how we think about to take into account the future threats, and we agree, because we know how to do the war, and we are doing it today, and we will do it tomorrow.
Just as you had that first experience in 1991 when all of you were in theater for Desert Storm, which I think is really incredible. General Philippe Lavigne, Chief of the French Air Force, sir, it's always an honor and pleasure. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Have a good day.